Don't give a goddamn what nobody say. They tell you something different, they lie.
Associated with that. Right. That ain't in my best interest. Right. Well, if that's the take on it, I have no choice but to separate myself. You know, just due to what's best for me and mine.
Nobody. I ain't no snitch. I don't work for the DEA. None of that. They use my loyalty against me. And that's how I feel is happening right here. With this thing with me and Tip. You know what I'm saying?
Welcome back to BuzzBuster. I'm glad you're here. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss daily videos. The name Alphamega once hit the streets like a war drum, shaking every corner it touched. Standing tall at 6'4", built like he'd walk straight out of a battlefield, his presence told stories louder than any lyric ever could. He wasn't just another rapper chasing a quick spotlight. He was the muscle, the backbone, the right-hand man to one of hip-hop's biggest icons. He was this close to breaking free and carving out his own empire, ready to stamp his legacy deep into hip-hop history.
I don't work for no DEA.
Have you ever?
I have never worked for the DEA.
Okay.
I had a gun charge. That's an ATF charge.
Okay.
I don't work for the DEA. I dibbled and dabbed and selling drugs when I was young.
But just when it looked like everything was about to explode, it all fell apart in a blink. One moment, he was family with Grand Hustle, living the dream. And the next, it was like he vanished into thin air. Then came the whispers. Documents started floating around. And before anyone could even react, the word on the street was he'd been labeled a snitch. In an instant, everything he built came crashing down. His come-up, gone. His respect, erased. But to understand that fall, you gotta rewind the story. Because Cedric Zellers wasn't just some rapper from Atlanta. He was Techwood, born and raised. Techwood had history carved into its bricks. It was built in the 1930s as America's very first public housing project. But by the time Zellers came into the world on June 2, 1972, that proud legacy had turned into pure survival mode. What used to stand as a symbol of hope had become a battlefield where only the strong made it through. Techwood wasn't just rough, it was a test of who could make it out alive. Zellers once said it best, it was a world of predator and prey, a city trapped inside another city. Cops, known as the Red Dogs, stomped through those blocks like an army, breaking down doors and flexing their power every chance they got. Violence didn't just touch his life, it shaped it. Before he could even spell his own name, pain had already written his story. At only 3 years old, Zellers saw something no kid should ever see. His father beating his mother so brutally she lost teeth. That image burned into him forever, turning innocence into steel. That kind of pain doesn't disappear. It builds walls. It changes the way a person breathes. By 9, he was already hustling. It started small, grabbing boxes of Twinkies and selling them for a few bucks. But in Techwood, no hustle stays small for long. You either level up or get swallowed whole. There's no in between. Then the late 80s hit, and crack ripped through Atlanta like wildfire. By 16, Zellers, known in the streets as Techwood said, was deep in the game. He once bragged that he had $26,000 stacked up, a wild number for a teenager. He blew it fast too, spoiling his girl, living loud, acting untouchable. But in those streets, money always brings enemies. Respect out there wasn't handed out, it was taken. When someone crossed him, Zellers didn't just let it slide. He made sure they paid in full. His name carried weight far beyond Techwood. His stories became street legends, told in whispers and shouts across Atlanta. 2 moments from that wild era still echo through the city's history. And the first one, it's centered around a man everyone on the block called Big Bird. It all exploded one unforgettable Atlanta night. There'd been bad blood brewing for a while.
He used to beat my mom. He beat my mom. He stomped my mom on my mama. He stomped my mama's teeth out. That trauma like that really f***ed me up. I was like, I got f***ed up at a young.
And when Zellers spotted Big Bird chilling in his glossy 5.0 Mustang, that was all it took. No hesitation, no second thoughts. Zellers charged in. 2 pistols ready, one .38 and another piece. He started blasting through the heavy rain like it was a movie scene come to life. But the streets had their own plans. The ground was slick, and mid-charge, he slipped hard, face first into the mud. Big Bird ducked behind the hood and fired back with a .45, the shots cracking through the night like thunderclaps. Neighbors dropped to the floor, windows shattered, and the air was thick with gunpowder and fear. Zellers got up, soaked to the bone and furious, then stormed off to grab another strap from his cousin Lonzo. That night, Techwood turned into a war zone, and another chapter of his legend was born. He came back locked in and ready for battle. He chased Big Bird through an apartment complex, the place erupting with screams, doors slamming, bullets flying everywhere. It was chaos, loud, raw, and dangerous. That night showed everyone who Cedric Zellers really was, a man who didn't fear death and wouldn't back down for anybody. But the second incident, that one hit on a whole different level. This wasn't about blocks or cash, it was personal. An OG from the neighborhood had disrespected Zeller's girl, Keisha, during a heated argument about drugs. And in Zeller's world, that kind of move wasn't forgiven, it was handled. If he let that slide, his name in the streets would have meant nothing. So he went hunting, and when he found the man, it went down fast. Zellers opened fire 5 times. 2 shots hit the legs, 1 caught the backside, another struck the groin, and the last was just to make the message crystal clear. Then, according to Zellers himself, he walked up, pressed the barrel to the man's head, and pulled the trigger 3 times. But fate stepped in. The gun jammed. Like destiny itself froze the moment in the middle of the madness. Later, that same night, Zeller sat at his mama's house, the same gun still in his hand. He pointed it at the sky and fired, and this time it went off perfectly. That's when it hit him deep. He had truly meant to take a man's life, all for the code of the streets. That realization cut through him sharp, a truth he couldn't outrun.
The early 90s trapped Zellers in a brutal cycle. Hustle, jail, and right back to the same streets again. It was a non-stop loop that chewed up everyone who tried to play it smart. He got popped for moving coke, did his stretch behind bars, came home, and jumped right back into the grind like he never left. But then came 1995, and that year flipped his whole world upside down. He got caught selling firearms to an undercover federal agent, and that one mistake changed the entire course of his life. By then, Zellers already had a record. He was a convicted felon with a past robbery charge weighing on his back. But this time, it wasn't state time, it was federal, and that hit way harder. There's no skipping out early, no easy way out, no good behavior card to play.
And this dude disrespect my girl, and you disrespect my name. You doing it loud in front of everybody. I go down there, and I pop him, and I pop him 5 times. You know, I popped him in both his legs, and put the gun to his head, pulled the trigger 3 times.
When you catch fair time, you're doing almost every single day of it. At least 85% locked in for real. When the gavel dropped, the sentence hit like a hammer. 110 months, nearly 9 years gone, just like that. At 23 years old, Zellers was staring down a future where his entire youth would fade behind prison walls. When they shipped him off to federal time, he knew deep down this wasn't something he could just coast through. If he wanted any kind of real future, he had to change his whole game plan. And that's exactly when things took a shocking twist. Court records from the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia reveal what happened next. In October 1995, Zellers made his move. He decided to cooperate, sat down with federal agents, got debriefed, and started dropping information about major criminal activity running through Atlanta. The main name on the Fed's radar? Ali Bakar, a major player running weight through the city. And from that moment on, Zeller's story took a wild turn nobody in the streets ever expected. This wasn't some small backdoor setup either. The feds were hunting for a heavyweight insider. They needed someone who knew the game, who had walked those same dangerous blocks, and who had real credibility in that world. Zellers checked every single box. He wasn't just a bystander, he was a man with street stripes, someone who could connect the dots from the inside. And for the feds, that made him priceless. He didn't hide behind fake names or secret meetings either. He sat face to face with a DEA agent and a federal prosecutor, giving his real name, Cedric Zellers. Later, that same name would echo through the industry under a new identity, Alphamega. The same man who once ruled the blocks was now standing in a federal courtroom testifying for the government in the case United States versus Ali Bakar. When he took the stand, the courtroom went silent. Every word that came out of his mouth carried serious weight. His testimony hit like dynamite, helping seal a conviction that sent shockwaves through Atlanta's underworld. Bakar was found guilty of conspiracy to distribute narcotics, and Zeller's words were one of the key weapons the prosecution had in their arsenal. In the federal system, the only real way to shave off time is through what's called substantial assistance, and Zellers delivered. By July 1997, Judge J. Owen Forrester officially cut his time down from 110 months to 92. 18 months of his life traded for cooperation, locked forever in black and white court records. He ended up serving most of his time at USP Lompoc out in California, miles away from the wild streets of Atlanta, far from the corners of Techwood that once shaped him. Techwood said slowly started to fade into the past, and something new began to rise in his place. Locked up with nothing but time and silence, Zellers started writing like his life depended on it. Page after page, notebook after notebook, lyrics, movie scripts, deep thoughts and raw emotions spilled out of him non-stop. He was on fire with creativity, turning pain into poetry. He filled thousands of pages with stories that bled truth and survival. He swore the old life was gone for good, buried behind concrete walls, and what was coming next, it was going to be legendary. When he finally walked out those federal gates in February 2002, freedom hit him like a shock. The world outside had flipped upside down. The internet was booming. Hip-hop had gone full glam. Diamond chains, candy-painted cars, and million-dollar deals flashing everywhere. The South wasn't asking for respect anymore. It owned the crown. Sure, Zellers had missed the wave, but he hadn't wasted a single second behind those bars. He called that place his gladiator school, a battlefield where he rebuilt himself from scratch. He didn't just pump iron, he sharpened his mind too.
Alpha wasn't always Alpha. Alpha was Sid though. You know what I mean? Two different people.
If you know him right now, he probably robbed y'all for this camera shit and all that. Like, for real, I'm dead ain't serious.
Yeah, man, I'm shot.
By the time he got out, he said he had over 1,700 songs, 3 full movie scripts, and even a non-fiction book already outlined in his head. Prison might have taken his freedom, but it handed him something powerful: focus. He walked out convinced he was ready to flip the story completely, to live clean, stay sharp, and start new. The world outside had changed without him, but he was determined to make his mark again, no matter how different the game looked. Most people think Alphamega's story picked up when he linked with T.I. back in Atlanta, but that's not the real start. There's a hidden chapter most fans never heard. When Zellers got released, he didn't rush straight to Bankhead. He took a whole different road. His comeback didn't start in Georgia at all. It started in Philadelphia. That's where the next phase of his rise began to take shape. And his first real cosign? It didn't come from the king of the South. It came from Philly's own Broad Street bully himself, Beanie Sigel. Picture this: Alphamega sitting in Beanie Siegel's mother's living room, surrounded by the pulse of the Rockefeller era. The walls were filled with that real Philly energy, raw, proud, and no nonsense. Back then, Beanie's word meant everything. He wasn't about image or playing industry politics. Beanie was pure authenticity, a man who could smell a fake before they even opened their mouth. And right there, in that humble living room, Zellers, now fully embracing the name Alphamega, spit his truth. No fancy words, no fake energy, just straight fire from the soul. Beanie sat back, arms crossed, eyes locked in, listening to every word like he was studying a soldier story. His mom and sister watched in silence, feeling the weight in every verse. You could feel the hunger in that room, the pain, the struggle. the redemption burning inside a man who had walked through hell and came back ready to make it count. And he caught that energy instantly. He could feel the truth in every word, every scar, every bar. What stood in front of him wasn't just another rapper trying to chase fame. It was a 6'4" ex-con with real pain, real purpose, and a presence that couldn't be faked. Beanie respected that on sight. According to Alphamega, he didn't waste a second. He saw something solid in the man and offered him a deal right then and there. But what happened next, that's the part that still gets people talking to this day. Alphamega looked Beanie straight in the eyes and said, "I'm a boss like you. I just wanted you to hear me." No begging, no desperation, just confidence that came from the soul. He turned the offer down. No hesitation, no second thoughts. He wasn't searching for a shortcut or trying to ride another man's wave. He wanted recognition, not rescue. To make sure the message was clear, he even poured out cash and paid Beanie for his time. No handouts, no strings attached. That single move said more about who he was than any verse could ever do. That moment defined him. It proved to everyone watching that Alphamega wasn't another hungry ex-con trying to jump on somebody else's success. He was his own man, focused, grounded, and moving with purpose. The streets took notice, and from that point on, people understood. He wasn't just talking about change, he was living it. That Philly moment became his first real stamp of respect. And back in those days, when Beanie Siegel co-signed you, the streets listened. His word meant validation. And that nod from Beanie turned Alphamega's name into a whisper spreading through every city block. Suddenly, folks weren't just talking about his past, they were watching the kind of man he was becoming. By 2005, Alphamega was back in Atlanta, and the whole city was on fire. The sound, the culture, the movement, it was all shifting. And sitting on the throne at the center of it all was T.I., the king of the South himself. He had gone from being a street-hardened hustler to a worldwide icon, holding down the crown while the whole world watched his every move. But with that kind of fame came pressure, the kind that could break a man. T.I. couldn't move the way he used to. Every step, every word, every headline mattered now.
26,000, man. Jewelry, the cars. The girl I was messing with, Keisha, I had got her maximum, 87 maximum.
The raw energy that once made him untouchable had to be managed, protected, and polished for the spotlight. He needed someone who could keep that street edge alive while he focused on the music, the business, and the image. And that's when Alphamega stepped back into the picture, right on cue. Their connection wasn't random either. Alphamega had real history with T.I.'s family. He knew T.I.'s father, a man everyone on the block called a daddy, and he knew his uncle too. Those deep ties built a foundation stronger than any contract ever could. It wasn't about paperwork, it was about respect, sealed with a handshake and backed by real street loyalty. T.I. was the king, and Alphamega became the muscle behind the crown. For the next few years, he played that position like it was made for him. He stood as the silent force behind Grand Hustle, the man whose presence alone spoke louder than words. When Alphamega was in the room, you felt it. No introductions needed. In an industry obsessed with image, Alphamega brought something no PR team could fake. Real street weight. When he stepped into a room, you could feel the atmosphere shift. The air got heavy, the energy tightened, and suddenly everyone was on alert. Folks straightened their posture, conversation slowed, and you could see it in their eyes. Half respect, half fear, and a whole lot of curiosity about who this man really was. He didn't need the spotlight, he was the spotlight. Even in silence, his presence spoke louder than any verse on the charts. His mission wasn't about fame or cameras, it was about protection, power, and making sure no one ever dared test Grand Hustle's name. And he handled that role to perfection, like it was written in his DNA. That unstoppable force hit full throttle in 2007 with the release of Hurt, the explosive record featuring Alphamega, T.I., and Busta Rhymes. That track wasn't just a song, it was a battlefield anthem. No polish, no filters, just raw aggression and straight-up reality. It talked about revenge, home invasions, and what happened when lines got crossed. And when T.I. dropped the bar, you know what it is when I got Alpha with me. That wasn't just rap talk, that was a real-life warning shot.
It told everyone exactly what time it was. Grand Hustle wasn't out here pretending. With Alphamega in the mix, they had a real enforcer standing behind the empire, someone who gave T.I.'s words actual weight.
When it came time to shoot the Hurt music video, the set didn't look like a normal shoot. It looked like an Atlanta street rally. No rented actors, no staged extras, just real ones. The crowd was filled with recognizable faces, ex-NFL players, neighborhood names that held weight, and street figures from Alabama, Texas, and way beyond. They didn't come for clout. They came to stand behind Alphamega. The vibe that day was electric, like static in the air before a lightning strike. You could feel the intensity humming through the crowd. It was real, unfiltered, and too raw for television. Cameras rolled, but the energy on that set couldn't be scripted. It was the type of authenticity that money couldn't buy. But what made it all even wilder was the contradiction hiding right in plain sight. Because while all that street loyalty was on full display, T.I. was publicly pushing his Stop Snitching campaign. He was preaching loyalty, silence, and standing firm on the street code. No folding, no talking, no betrayals. Grand Hustle had built an entire image around being untouchable and unbreakable. Real ones only. And right there, standing in the center of that message, was Alphamega, a man who, years earlier, had cut down his federal sentence by testifying in a major drug case. The irony was unbelievable. The whole industry had bought into Grand Hustle's story of street honor without ever checking the paperwork buried deep in the federal system. For a while, that secret stayed buried, and during that time, Alphamega's reputation was at its absolute peak. He was the physical embodiment of everything Grand Hustle stood for: loyalty, power, and intimidation wrapped into one. But the higher the climb, the harder the fall. And to see just how wild things got, you gotta rewind to November 24th, 2008, the night of the infamous Dirty Awards in Atlanta. That night would flip everything on its head. By that point, the tension between Grand Hustle and Shawty Lowe's D. Pharrell crew had been simmering for months, and it wasn't some fake rap beef cooked up for headlines. This was personal, territorial, real bankhead business. That stretch of Atlanta soil meant everything. T.I. claimed it as his kingdom, but Shawty Lowe had lived and breathed it his whole life. When those two camps clashed, it wasn't just words, it was legacy colliding with pride. That night, the tension in the air was so thick you could taste it. When Shawty Lowe hit the stage to perform They Know, Grand Hustle took it as a direct hit aimed at T.I. And for someone like Alphamega, that wasn't just shade, it was straight up disrespect. And disrespect in his world, that was the same as war. According to police reports and witnesses, it only took a split second for everything to explode.
One time I got locked up when I called the Fed gun charge. I didn't come back home in 2002. I did 7 years, 4 days, 5 hours, 32 minutes, and 16 seconds, though.
One moment, music was blasting. The next, chaos. In the middle of the performance, Grand Hustle's section erupted like a powder keg ready to blow. Alphamega, standing among the crowd, snapped without hesitation. He grabbed a chair and launched it toward the stage with all his strength. And that single move was the spark that turned the whole event upside down. The crowd went wild, fists flying, bottles breaking, people screaming. The room turned into pure mayhem within seconds. Cops stormed in from every direction, spraying pepper spray to get control. But it was already too late. The scene had flipped from an award show to an all-out riot in a heartbeat. The air filled with smoke and shouts, people coughing and stumbling, trying to escape the madness. When things finally started calming down, T.I. stepped up to the stage to accept his award and tried to restore peace. He spoke to the crowd, calling for calm, trying to bring the energy back down. But the damage, it was already done. The Dirty Awards ended early, lights still flashing, and the smell of pepper spray hanging in the air like burnt metal. And right there in the chaos was Alphamega, dragged out by cops, shirt ripped to shreds, face bruised, eyes blazing with fury. That wild, unforgettable night became the turning point, the highest and lowest moment of Alphamega's Grand Hustle run. It showed the power he carried, but also the danger that came with it. That moment was both the peak of his rise and the beginning of his fall. Years later, when people look back on that riot, they realized it wasn't just some random outburst. It was a warning sign, a glimpse of the storm that was about to hit Alpha Omega's entire world. And when he finally spoke about what really went down that night, the truth stunned everyone. He revealed that Shawty Lo wasn't even his true enemy. In fact, they were practically family. One of Alpha Omega's children's mothers was Shawty Lo's sister. The so-called beef that tore up the Dirty Awards was actually a massive misunderstanding that spiraled out of control. He explained it years later with brutal honesty, saying pride, ego, and raw street instinct pushed him over the edge. He claimed he thought Shawty Lo was about to throw a drink at him, and his reaction was pure survival mode, what he called self-defense, not aggression. But by the time the truth came to light, it didn't matter anymore. The headlines were written, the footage was everywhere, and Alpha Omega's reputation had already taken a massive hit. That night didn't just end an award show. It marked the moment when the man who once moved like a myth started to unravel before everyone's eyes.
The image that burned itself into everyone's memory wasn't the misunderstanding. It was that chair soaring through the air. That one moment, raw, chaotic, and unforgettable, became the perfect symbol of Alpha Omega's entire Grand Hustle era. He was the living definition of power, loyalty, and danger all rolled into one. Bold, fearless, and completely unpredictable. By the close of 2008, Alpha Omega looked untouchable. He was the guy everyone wanted on their side, the one who jumped headfirst into a fight without thinking twice. If there was a problem, he handled it. If there was a threat, he erased it. Grand Hustle had their own personal storm, and the streets respected it. No one doubted for a second that Alpha Omega was the real deal, the kind of man who lived by the code he represented. Everything was lining up perfectly for him. His debut album, I Am Alphamega, was already set to drop in early 2009. The hype was there, the streets were ready, and it seemed like Alpha Omega was finally turning all that raw street energy into a full-blown rap career. This was his second chance, his moment to step out of the shadows and stand in the spotlight on his own terms. But while he was making noise in Atlanta, something dark was quietly moving beneath the surface, something no amount of muscle, loyalty, or street respect could protect him from. Behind the scenes, a journalist over at the Smoking Gun had been doing some serious digging, going through old federal case files from the Northern District of Georgia, and what they were about to find would shake the entire hip-hop world to its core. On May 5th, 2009, the Smoking Gun dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through every corner of the industry. The headline exploded across the internet. Rap star's protege once worked as DEA informant and government witness. Inside the article were official federal documents, real court records from 1995.
I turned him down. I told him, no disrespect, I'm a boss like you. I just want to make sure you feel me. I'm going to pay you $5,000 for wasting your time. Boom. And I did it like, man, you liked it. You know what I'm saying? So my point's been proven. My point.
And there it was, all laid out in black and white. The paperwork traced everything back to Cedric Zellers, years before he ever became Alpha Omega. It detailed the case where he'd faced a possible 110-month sentence for selling guns to an undercover federal agent. According to those records, Zellers had agreed to cooperate, sitting down with federal agents, giving information, and testifying about criminal activity connected to a man named Ali Bakar, a known player in Atlanta's drug world. The files didn't just suggest it, they proved it. One document stood above all the rest. A court order dated July 25, 1997, signed by Judge J. Owen Forrester, officially confirming that Zeller's sentence had been reduced for providing substantial assistance. In plain English, that meant his cooperation had earned him a lighter sentence, 18 full months shaved off his federal time. That one PDF hit harder than any diss track, any scandal, or any street rumor. It was undeniable. The same man who had stood as Grand Hustle's enforcer, the face of street loyalty and silence, was now publicly branded as something he could never run from, a government witness. And just like that, the empire he built started to crumble, brick by brick, rumor by rumor. The streets don't forget, and the industry doesn't forgive. What made it even more twisted was the timing. Just as Alphamega's past was exploding into the open, T.I., the king of the South himself, was days away from reporting to federal prison for his infamous 2007 machine gun case, a case that started when his own bodyguard wore a wire for the feds. The irony was too heavy to ignore. One man caught up in a stop snitching culture, and the other suddenly exposed for cooperating years earlier. The same empire built on loyalty and silence was cracking from the inside. And this time, there was no chair to throw, no fight to win, and nowhere left to hide. T.I. was already deep in image repair mode, working overtime to convince the world he'd left the street life behind. Every move he made was calculated, cleaning house, staying far from anything that even looked like snitching or shady behavior. But then, out of nowhere, his own right-hand man, the muscle of Grand Hustle, the enforcer everyone feared, had paperwork floating all over the internet for the world to see. It was a full-blown PR nightmare waiting to erupt. The same empire built on silence, loyalty, and street code was now facing the one headline that could destroy it all. T.I. wasted no time. He picked up the phone and called into Hot 107.9 Atlanta, jumping straight on air to control the damage before it spiraled any further. His tone was calm, but you could hear the shock underneath every word. He told the city he was blindsided, completely unaware of Alphamega's past. He made one thing crystal clear. In Grand Hustle, honesty wasn't optional. Everyone was expected to be upfront about their history. No secrets, no surprises. According to T.I., Alphamega had never said a word about any of this to him or anyone on the team. Then came the kill shot, the line that ended everything. T.I. told listeners straight up, he essentially deceived us by failing to fully disclose the truth about his past. That statement hit like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just disappointment, it was a public disowning live on the radio.
He followed up with another blow, saying there was no place in Grand Hustle for dishonesty or deception. And just like that, boom, it was over. He wished Alphamega success and financial stability, but made sure everyone knew one thing loud and clear: the chapter was closed. No warning, no fade out, just a cold surgical cut. Overnight, Alphamega was erased from Grand Hustle. His name, his presence, his reputation, gone. The same man who had once stood beside the king of the South was suddenly cast out, like he'd never been part of the throne room at all. But the fall didn't stop with business. It hit personal. Not long after the split, reports started flooding social media and message boards claiming Alphamega had been hospitalized. Nobody could pin down the truth. The rumors flew wild. Some said he'd been jumped, others whispered something way darker. The story twisted in every direction until Alphamega finally spoke up himself, and he did it the only way he knew how, through music. He dropped a diss track to clear the air, revealing the truth. He hadn't been attacked, he'd broken both his legs. That's why he'd been off the radar, out of sight and silent. But silence wasn't in his nature for long. In March 2010, Alphamega roared back with a new track called Green Light, and the target was unmistakable: T.I. himself. On the record, he spit, "I broke both legs, so I had to fall back, regroup, reset, and then crawl back." Those bars hit like both a confession and a warning.
All the movement, you know what I'm saying? That's why he jumped off the stage while the song was going, you know, by himself, you know. And he, you know what I'm saying, made what was out. Somebody flatline.
It was Alphamega telling the world, yeah, he'd been down, but he wasn't out. He was healing, recharging, and plotting his return. Even with broken bones and a shattered reputation, Alphamega refused to bow out quietly. The man who once guarded the king of the South was now standing on the opposite side of the castle walls, firing shots back at the throne. The
enforcer had turned into the rebel, the exile who no longer needed permission to speak. Every lyric he dropped carried the sting of betrayal, pride, and payback. Alphamega wasn't just trying to rebuild, he was demanding to be heard. And when he roared, the whole city stopped to listen. Alphamega came out swinging, no filters, no hesitation, and definitely no backing down. He pointed his sights straight at T.I., accusing him of cutting ties the second things got messy. In his mind, he wasn't just some sidekick, he was the muscle behind the throne, the one who took hits, handled the heat, and stood on the front line while T.I. built his empire in peace. In his tracks and interviews, Alphamega made sure the world remembered that. He claimed that when T.I. was dealing with his own federal gun case, the so-called King of the South had even called him in tears. That line alone shook the city and lit up the internet. People didn't know what to believe. Was Alpha speaking raw truth, or was this straight revenge wrapped in rhyme? But Alphamega didn't stop at lyrics. He took the whole story to the public. During his now legendary DJ Vlad interview, he sat across from Vlad, calm, confident, and ready to flip the script completely. He wanted to tell his side, to reshape how the streets remembered his name. He looked straight into the camera and flat out denied ever being a DEA informant. He said his original charge had nothing to do with drugs. It was an ATF gun case, plain and simple. He brushed off the official documents that connected multiple agencies to his case, insisting that people were twisting the facts. He ignored one crucial detail, though. In the federal world, the DEA, ATF, and FBI often move as one team. If you're working with one, you're working with all of them. Then came the line that froze everyone watching, the most jaw-dropping defense he ever gave. Alphamega leaned forward and said, "I didn't snitch, I lied." He claimed he didn't personally know Ali Bakar, the man tied to the case. According to him, the feds had spoon-fed him the details, names, cars, addresses, and he just repeated whatever they told him to say in order to cut down his sentence. In his mind, because he didn't really know the guy, it didn't break the code of the streets. But the streets don't care about technicalities. There's no footnote or exception in that rule book. Once you cooperate, you're marked. That's it. You can explain, debate, or defend it all you want, but once the word informant hits your name, it sticks like a tattoo you can't erase. Still, time has a way of changing how stories sound. Years later, what once looked like a scandal big enough to bury Alphamega's rap career forever has started to fade into memory. The outrage cooled, the headlines got old, and the internet moved on. Cedric Zealous, the man behind the Alphamega name, didn't disappear. He pivoted, he switched lanes, and started turning his pain and history into wisdom. These days, he's looked at less like a controversy and more like a storyteller, an OG who lived through chaos and came out with knowledge to share.
He's become a kind of street historian, pulling back the curtain on what life in Techwood was really like, how it felt surviving the Red Dog era, what prison politics truly meant, and how the music game can twist loyalty into survival. You can find him now on YouTube, podcasts, and interviews, breaking down real-life lessons from the trenches. He's not rapping for fame anymore. He's talking truth for understanding. Every story he tells carries the scars of where he's been and the clarity of where he's headed. Alphamega might have lost the stage, but Cedric Zealous gained something even more powerful, a voice people actually listen to. He doesn't hide from his past or try to sugarcoat the chaos. He faces it head on. In one interview, Alphamega shocked everyone when he revealed he has 24 children with more than 20 different mothers. The internet couldn't believe it, but that confession showed something powerful. He wasn't running from who he was anymore. He'd stopped pretending. He owned every part of his story, good and bad. And when he talks about the music industry now, it's not with starry eyes or nostalgia. It's with the voice of a man who's seen behind the curtain and lived to tell the tale. He calls the business evil.
Or to really be associated with that. Right. That ain't in my best interest. Right. Well, if that's the take on it, I have no choice but to separate myself, just due to what's best for me and mine.
Describing it as a cold machine that chews people up, feeding off ego,
temptation and exhaustion until there's nothing left but shells of who they used to be. He says the industry doesn't care about your heart or your story. It only cares how much it can take before you break. Alphamega might have lost the crown, but he gained something way deeper. Wisdom earned through wreckage. He stopped chasing respect through fear and fame. Now he earns it by telling truths nobody else dares to speak out loud. Every word he drops feels heavy because it comes from survival, not theory. These days he moves differently, calmer, quieter, but with that same fire still flickering beneath the surface. You can see it in his eyes, the look of a man who's carried his past like armor. The same flame that once pushed him through the danger of Techwood now burns for something purer, truth instead of revenge. Most of his energy goes toward reaching the next generation, the one still caught between pride and survival. He tells them the message he once ignored himself. The streets don't love nobody. He's lived the heartbreak of loyalty turning into betrayal and watched the spotlight twist real men into puppets. When he speaks now, it isn't about clout, it's about clarity. You'll find him online, sitting in front of a mic, breaking it all down like a street professor, warning young hustlers just how fast the game can flip on you. One bad move, one wrong call, and your whole world can crumble before the sun comes up. He reminds them that being feared isn't the same as being respected, and that money fades way faster than peace of mind. And even with the controversy still following his name like a shadow, Alphamega doesn't dodge it. He owns it. He says, "My story ain't clean, but it's real." That line hits deep because in a culture obsessed with image, his truth slices through the noise like a blade. He's proof that authenticity still has power, even when it's messy. He opens up about how the fame, the fast money, and the power nearly destroyed him. In interviews, he strips it down to raw honesty, how the industry didn't love him, it used him. He says they wanted the energy, not the man, calling the rap game a trap dressed up as opportunity. He saw firsthand how easily loyalty can turn into leverage and how fast your name can go from celebrated to disposable. But what makes his story really hit home is the reflection, the evolution. Alphamega, once the fire behind kings, found his real peace only after losing everything. He admits it straight up. Back then, he chased validation through violence, respect through fear, and loyalty through chaos. But now he's chasing legacy, not through lies, but through truth. Every word he speaks is redemption in motion, a reminder that even the hardest fall can lead to real growth if you've got the courage to own your story. Sometimes Alphamega looks back on those grand hustle days, not with anger or bitterness, but with a rare kind of clarity.
That you was feeling like so evil, industry. Yeah. Industry is yeah. I don't give a goddamn what nobody say. They tell you something different.
He calls them lessons in disguise, saying they taught him everything he needed to know about loyalty, fame, and human nature. The same hands that crown you are the same ones that can drop you when the pressure hits. That line alone tells you he's not stuck in the past. He's learned from it. Even though that paperwork scandal forever changed how the streets viewed him, Alphamega has built something new out of the wreckage. He's carved out his own lane, half redemption, half raw honesty. He's not hiding behind old titles or trying to live off past glory anymore. Now he tells his version of the story, straight up, whether people like it or not. Now in his 50s, he still walks with that same unshakable energy, but it's different now. It's not intimidation that fills the room when he steps in, it's presence, the kind of calm that only comes from a man who's made peace with his chaos, who's lived through storms, and finally found his balance. From federal courtrooms to viral interviews, Alphamega has seen every level of rise and fall a man can experience. And through it all, he's become living proof that redemption isn't about what people think of you. It's about who you decide to become after you hit the ground. So when people ask if he regrets it all, the fights, the fame, the fallout, he doesn't even blink. He says, regret?
Nah, regret means I ain't learned nothing. I lived it, I paid for it, and now I teach it. That one sentence sums up exactly who he is now. Accountable, unfiltered, and unapologetically real.
That's Alpha Omega today. No longer the enforcer, no longer the man standing in someone else's shadow, but a survivor who turned his scars into sermons. He's proof that even in a world built on betrayal, ego, and quick fame, a man can still rise again. Not as a myth, but as a message. And if you really listen to him now, you can still hear that same energy that once made Atlanta shake. It's just evolved. It's not a war cry anymore, it's wisdom. Every word carries the rhythm of experience and the weight of truth. Alpha Omega says he was just a convenient casualty, a name that got cut loose when the king needed to polish his image and distance himself from anything that even looked like cooperation. He still believes he took that fall so someone else could stay spotless. And in his eyes, that's the real story, whether people believe it or not. Even after all these years, he repeats one phrase with quiet certainty. Real, recognize real. To him, those words aren't just catchy slogans, they're armor. He holds tight to the belief that the people who truly know him, the ones who saw his loyalty, his grind, and his heart up close, understand the man behind the controversy. No matter what that old paperwork says, Alpha Omega stands by his truth, chest out, head high. Because for him, reputation fades, but realness, that's forever. And that's the tangled, powerful story of Alpha Omega, the enforcer, the artist, the survivor, the man who rose from the streets of Techwood to stand beside hip-hop royalty, only to fall hard and rebuild himself from the ashes. His journey isn't clean or polished, it's messy, raw, and brutally real. But that's what makes it unforgettable. He went from being a street legend to an industry outcast, from standing behind the king of the South to walking alone with nothing but his truth. And somehow, he turned it all into a message about redemption, resilience, and self-awareness. His name might not be lighting up the charts anymore, but his story, it still echoes through every conversation about loyalty, fame, and survival in hip-hop. Alpha Omega became more than a scandal or a headline. He became a mirror for the entire game itself. His rise showed how fast this industry can crown you. His fall revealed how quickly it can cut you loose. And his comeback proved how rare it is to rise again with your soul still intact. Every chapter of his life carries a lesson about pride, pain, power, and peace. He's proof that no matter how far you fall, you can still stand up again and rewrite your story on your own terms. If you've made it this far, show some love. Like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment. What's your take on Alpha Omega's rise, fall, and redemption? Was he wrong or just misunderstood? Let's break it down.